All right, welcome to another song title challenge where the question is, climbers, how should you write this one? It's like Jurassic Park, Brent, when the scientists were so busy figuring out whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think about whether or not they should,
That's
right?
right, but we don't have to worry about the last part of that on these shows. We don't have to worry about
That's
it.
right. This is a fun, creative exercise. These are bonus episodes. We do them every other week. And climbers, listeners of this podcast, send in their song titles to info@daredevilproduction.com. Production is singular. There is no S. info@daredevilproduction.com. They put STC or song title challenge in the subject line so it gets into the right folder. If you don't, it won't.
If you put
And you can send
STD, it goes into a different folder.
That's right. It goes into this other pile
It's
over
to a
here.
911 folder,
Yeah.
emergency. Full.
He doesn't open those.
This is the holy shit folder over here. Holy shit,
Right.
this hurts. And what we do is Brent and I invite an amazing songwriter onto the show. We spring the title live on the podcast here to them, and then together we try to work out 5 or 6 different conceptual angles on how to write that title. This is really to give you insight on how the pro songwriters think and what happens before they really dig into a title, whether that happens personally before they walk in the room, or whether that happens in the room when an artist is like, I think we should write Red Hat, or Red Solo Cup, and we can do that. Warren Brothers, right? Hat tip to the Warren Brothers. We can write a song about anything. Boom, drop. Number one song. Like, there you go. So, with that said, this is not a co-write in any way, shape, or form, guys. If you submit your title, we sort of spew all this out, use all of what we say, use none of what we say. The only thing we demand is a invite to the number one party, right? And
that's right.
It better be number one, right?
Right. We do like number one parties.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Brent?
No, this is just for kind of infotainment. It's it's improv. It's just hopefully pulling the curtain back a little bit and showing you how pro songwriters think, and just to encourage you to dig past the the upper layer, the obvious stuff, because the platinum is underneath the dirt. So you got to dig a little deeper for it. Usually, though not always.
That's right. This will take a mundane song title and turn it into the most epic thing ever. A title that maybe in a hook book is like, whatever. And then all of a sudden you put the right angle on it and it's like, holy crap, that was a story. That hit me in the feels. And Brent, you've had, a lot of success with this now. This breathes new life into your old song titles in your hook book. Go back to some of those, 1,000 titles ago in your hook book, spend 15 minutes on one of those things. Just pick one and do this, and you're going to be surprised. Guess what? You were a genius all along with the titles, right? They just need a little love and attention. So with that, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yes. Today's guest was raised in South Africa with stops in Boston, Seattle, and Austin before landing in Nashville. Her single Somebody Does with Tiger Lily, which is now Tiger Lily Gold, produced by Shane McAnally on Monument Records, went number 1 on iTunes, the all-genre country chart. And the day of its release also took number 2 spot on Billboard Country Digital Sales Chart. She has also had numerous TV placements in shows such as Good Girls, Late Late Show with James Corden, List, Mistresses, the WWE, Monday Night Raw. Her recent single, Self Love, recorded and performed by Avriana on Warner Nashville, was featured on the Today Show and is currently streaming on Sirius XM Hits 1. She writes for Big Yellow Dog Music in Nashville. Zarni DeVette, welcome to The Climb.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hi, Zarni. Thank you for saying yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, that's awesome. And Tiger Lily Gold, I know that they changed their name. Friends of the podcast. We've had them
they've been on here. They've done
That's
one
so
of these
fun.
with us. They've done a song.
That's so fun. I bet they did it really well too. They're good at that.
They were a hoot. Like we just love that. They are super cool. Like super cool. And from the same town that my fiance's my future son-in-law
that's cool.
is living in.
That's
in
cool. Small
North
world.
Dakota. Yeah. Crazy cool. So, I don't know why that's relevant, but every time I think of them, I think of North Dakota. I think they would be happy about that. I think they would be happy about
they're
that.
proud of that.
All right, are we ready for the title?
Ready as
Might as well.
Yeah.
Never been ready.
So this is from Marla Rubenstein. We've done one from her before, I think.
Yeah, we have
And,
it. Marla.
and this title is it's got a cliche element to it, but with a twist. And I think there is. I'm interested to see what we do with this. It doesn't feel too constrictive. Sometimes we get a title, Zarni, and it just feels like there's only
Okay.
one thing you can do with this, because it's so restrictive. I don't think. I'd be interested to see what your brains come up with on this. So the title is, and by the way, before I mention this, Zarni, we forgot to tell you too that you can put, carte blanche, you can put any
Oh,
words before
okay.
or after the title
Okay.
to twist around the meaning and,
Cool.
just have fun with it, okay? The title is The Best is
Ooh.
History.
All right.
The Best is History.
The best is history. All right, writing that down. Interesting. That art. Okay, let me take a sip of coffee because I think I'm going to need caffeine for this one. All right, so that's a play off The Rest is History, right?
That's right.
So that's the twist in the cliche line instead of The Rest is History. The best is history.
That's interesting. So
The best is history.
Which I mean,
Yeah.
I get a ton of cliche titles, like a ton of cliche titles, and a ton of like sentences that don't. They're not even titles. They're like a vague song idea.
So my brain
I like
kind of
this one. It
goes.
kind
I
of
feel
just sort
like
of
the
struck me. I'm like, oh, this would be interesting.
the initial way would be like
Yeah,
a
best is
negative
history.
thing,
I mean,
the
ideas
best,
already.
like a
Zarni,
love
you
song.
had
The
an
best of us
idea.
is history.
What?
I'm a little
what hit
frozen.
you?
Can you still hear me? I was frozen on my end. Okay.
Yeah,
we can.
So relationship, you caught all that. Relationship gone bad kind of thing. The best is history. I feel like that's the most literal at face value. But I was wondering if it's almost like I kind of like lately taking a title that seems like it's going to be negative and making it positive. So I wonder if there's a way to do like a love song where you're kind of saying to the person, like, let's make it our goal. Obviously, you'd say this in a cool way, but like, let's make it our goal to get to the end of our life and never say the best is history. Like, the best is the future.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
like we're
never say
never
that.
going to say, like, we have the kind of love where we're never going to say the best is history. Kind of.
Yeah, I agree. I like that too because if it at first blush, you're like, oh, if you're looking back and you're kind of your best days are behind you, that's sad. That's like a negative thought. So how can we turn that positive? Because it just has to be more interesting that way. You have to get more creative with it. So I'm on board with that.
But you know what? It doesn't mean to me like it doesn't mean that just by saying the best is history doesn't mean that the best has passed us by and we're not having the best right now. You know what I mean? Like 5 seconds ago is history. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what if it's like a sort of a spin on like an angle like the good stuff, where it's like, hey man, you know what's really important is the history that you make, the memories that you make with your family, with the people that truly matter in your lives, with the relationships. That's what the best is, not a Ferrari or a Coach bag or the killer. It's all about the best is sitting on the front porch with your girl every night and in the morning having a cup of coffee and watching your kids grow up and watching your corn pop up in rows.
Well, kind of like the best isn't the new thing. The best is like having history. Is having this previous experience together. So the best is the new thing. The best is history. Like so it's kind of like saying the best is the fact that you have history with this person. Which could be kind of like if you're looking at, maybe it's the advice to the guy that's looking at getting out of a relationship, or he's in a relationship and he's kind of eyeing the new thing, the new shiny object person. And just like, dude, no, the best isn't the new thing. The best is history. And maybe he's thinking that's an interesting thought. If he's thinking, well, this is a big story thing, so it's a lot to unpack. But if the guy goes from thinking that, hey, the best is history, like I've been in this relationship, I've been married a while. Zarni, you've been married a while. Like, like you get to that point, like, oh man, of our best days,
Yeah.
are we just like mom and dad now? Is our, or like the guy kind of having the midlife crisis thing going, I want the new
Oh,
shiny
interesting.
thing. Right. But then if you come around to go, man, the best thing
That's the
is
love.
having this history, like this one, in my case, my wife, that we've been through the crap together. Right. And we've been through the best of times together too. It's like, man, nothing
Yeah.
can replace
Yeah.
that. Something new is going to be, well, it has to start off
Well,
shallow, right?
that's
Because
really
there's not
cool.
that depth to it.
And yeah, you could
That
do
could
the
be interesting.
choruses like, some people think the best thing is a first kiss, the best thing is a this, the best. You could kind of like
Mhm.
hunker down on this. But
Yeah.
Oh, there you
I
go.
think the best is
I like
history,
that.
like knowing somebody. Maybe that stuff I was saying is verse stuff and then the choruses. But the best is knowing someone like the back of your hand, blah blah blah, like all that stuff.
Yeah. Like,
I love.
they're going to be
Okay.
there for you
Uh-huh.
because they've been there for you.
So
And those
on that,
inside jokes that you get to make, and the way you can communicate with so little because you've been through so much,
Uh-huh.
that kind of thing. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
that's
That's
cool.
like that.
And that is kind of
That's
like the good stuff in a way, that kind
yeah.
of setup, but on the
Uh-huh.
course, maybe. Um,
Another twist you could put on it would be add an element of
Oh,
desperado in there.
mhm.
Like if you think about that, like if you think about that song Desperado and what that's about, eh, it really is like the people who chase the new love all the
Mhm.
time. It's like maybe almost an addiction or something. What it really
7 year
is
7 year ache kind of thing, yeah.
it's a protection racket, right?
Yeah.
Because as long as you do that, you don't have to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
and so it's like, then you find out like the best is history, like the best is like, and then we go into that stuff that you guys are
uh-huh.
talking about. That could be an interesting setup to,
Yeah.
uh, you know, to that. I don't think history needs to I think history can be the future, like future history,
Yeah.
These
it
are all
be
like
interesting like
love
that.
song angles too,
And
but you
yeah.
could also do like a friend angle because I think the reason we gravitate towards old friends is because we have history with them. So that's another angle that
Oh,
could
yeah.
be like a me and my friends kind of song if you didn't want to do the love song angle.
Mhm.
It's one way to do it. Or a family
Yeah.
song, like family memories, because just pretty much
Mhm.
any time you have like the people you feel comfortable around, and the reason you feel that is because you have history with
Yeah.
them. So those are kind of two different non-love
Mhm.
song ways you could do it.
Yeah. My son Ozzy loves when we get together with the grandparents, especially my parents. He wants to hear stories, like, "Tell me
Uh-huh.
something funny that happened to you,"
I
and that
used to
kind of
love to
stuff,
hear
and it's all,
stories
like,
from my
family history and that kind of he, like, eats
Yeah,
that
that
stuff up. He loves it because 'cause they're funny
yeah.
stories, but it happened to family.
You could okay, on the listicle thing again,
Mhm.
you could write it like I think there are moments like comedians do a good job of pulling this out in well-written movies where these common things that are just so freaking crazy that happen within families, right?
Yeah.
That are just terrible, but they're hysterical, because
Yeah.
everybody, even the bad things, right? Like if you've ever seen Home for the Holidays with
Uh, was that Vince
Helen
Vaughn?
and what's that?
Was that Vince Vaughn?
that's for
No,
we're
it
thinking of
was
No.
it
Fortress.
was Robert Downey Jr.
Oh.
Yeah, you're thinking of Forgo.
Yeah.
It's just this total dysfunctional family, and it's just so hysterical. I think every family can relate to it. My family, I wouldn't call us dysfunctional at all, but man, it just makes you laugh so hard because it's just so real. So coming up with some of those moments, right, that can only happen when you're in a
Mhm.
family or something, and maybe sort of listing those out and getting that response lyrically there, and bringing it
Yeah,
home with the best is history.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And 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 chasing what Zarni was saying about, let's shake it out of the kind of the love story box. I think of like trucks. It's an old beater, and you're like, oh man, its best days are behind it. And you're like, no, the best part about it is the history. And almost like there's that, wasn't it
Mm,
Ford Fairlane? Oh my gosh, he's the guy that wrote some of it. We interviewed him in Denmark, Bobby Pinson. So
yeah,
he has a song called Ford Fairlane, I think, and he's talking about this old car, just the memories of it. It's like a beater, it's worthless, kind of thing. He goes, first $1 million takes it home,
Yeah.
like it's for sale.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
priceless, because it's a beater, but all the history. It's like you could almost do that. Like, no, the best thing about this is the history, and you can use that as a quote unquote pun intended vehicle for telling, about his dad, for telling about
Yeah.
family, this girl, whatever it is, or just him growing up and the boys
Yeah.
and that kind, his crew or whatever through the
Oh,
Yeah.
very, very,
I
very
like that.
cool. Very cool. And how about sort of speaking about a bunch of things that are um, that are good because they're vintage, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
maybe certain clothing, like a '59 Les Paul, a
Mhm.
'64 Strat, like a '63 Strat, like like there's certain things that
Uh-huh.
just have a '69 fastback, the bullet
Yeah.
car, right? Like, those it could, because I mean, you know what? There's I think there's a big sort of uh, understanding of that in society if you look at just from a vehicular point of view, because they're trying to bring back those styles
Mhm.
of the older cars. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Starting with that when they redid the Beetle, and all of a sudden everybody's bringing back like the older. They're trying to make them look old again, and I personally like it. I think that the new designs they've come up with suck.
Well, that makes me think of like advertising. And Zarni does, stuff for film and TV. She's a producer. She's like,
Oh my
she's
god.
like triple threat.
Hardly.
Wh- what do you think about that kind of play of going, okay, if we were to pop this in the sync world, using this phrase, the
Yeah.
best is history, like, could that be, of course, so much of that is vibe and
Right.
not
But I
story,
mean, yeah,
but that may kind of
then I
unlock some other
definitely
stuff
think
too.
the play up of like this having value because it has memories on it is the way to do it
Mhm.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. The best is history. Yeah, then you're selling like, back in the day it would be like
Right.
photography
Right.
equipment, something to capture those things, or something vintage like an old body
Right.
style on a new car, because the best is
Yeah.
history kind of thing,
Always.
or some
Oh,
sort of
oh, oh,
Yeah.
throwback
Sync is a
product.
little hard though, because it's like they want you to ride this fine line between it not being so on the nose. Like the music is not supposed to advertise the product. You know what I mean? So it's kind of it's a
Yeah,
it's a fine line.
I bet. Yeah.
I was watching. Uh, I was going down the music video thing, just looking at some different directors' takes on different music videos and stuff. And another friend of the show, a Jen
Oh,
Schott, wrote
yeah, I love Jen.
7,500 OBO for
Yeah.
Tim. And if you've seen that video, it's so interesting how they shot it, because it's like from the
Oh,
perspective
that's cool.
of the truck.
Hmm.
Like everything is shot from inside the truck and the
That's cool.
windshield looking out, when they're in there together, when they're making out in the car, when she meets somebody in the garage, and it's all like you're always inside the truck. So what if
Cool.
it's from the perspective of the truck, the way Jen Lee did that with Old Oak Tree, not
Oh
bad
yeah.
for an Old Oak Tree, where it's from the
Yeah.
perspective of the kitchen table.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe it's this old beat up car or truck that's saying the best is history, but talking about
Oh,
people.
that's cool.
Yeah, that is interesting.
That's cool.
Um, that is cool. And another thought too that made me think of this somehow is if it's like the person that's being left for somebody new, and there's a double plan going, no, you're not going to find that what we have with somebody else. You just want something new, but the best is history, but also knowing that
Yeah.
he's leaving
Yeah.
and the best is history, or she's leaving and that it's over,
Right.
which is a heartbreak thing. But, in the right context.
It could be like if it's from a female perspective, or I guess from a male perspective, could just be like the empowerment of the person that got dumped. Like the
Yeah.
best is
Yeah.
history. Like
Oh,
good
like you
luck
stirred up.
beat-
Yeah.
beating me. Yeah, good luck. Good luck beating me. You're that.
Cause I'm
What's
the
the
best
line?
thing. Yeah.
The suitcase left on the
Yeah.
curb.
Yeah.
You quote a line from Brad.
The best is history. Oh, well, I was thinking too of, there's a big, I'm wearing a red hat, but it says, one less orphan. It's it looks a little bit from a distance like another red hat, but there's, you know, a lot of people that are looking back going, wanna, you know, go back the way things were. And then there's also the other going, no, things are better now and they're going to be better in the future. So it's kind of the, who says the best is history. So like a forward looking positive, like, hey, things have come a long way in a lot of ways. And then just depending on your lane, what you want to say as far as what's better and hopeful, it could be kind of that kind of thing.
Oh, I like that.
You know, Brad Paisley had Welcome to the Future, you know, or a little We Shall Be Free. It could be all that kind of stuff. If you just put the who says.
Yeah, I like the who says language. That even like elevates my original thought of like saying it to your partner. Like maybe the guy or the girl talking to the guy or guys talking to the girl. Like you can sense your partner's getting worried about that things are getting a little bit stale, and you kind of say to them like reassuringly, who says the best is history? Like we've still got, you know.
Right. A lot of
Oh, I love
future.
that.
We still got a lot of future kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's go make it the best. Kind of make it the good old days.
A lot of
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I like that because that could
not too heavy.
Midlife crisis thing too, you know, like Janelle, my fiance, right? She was married, she raised her kids. They're grown now, and now she has this like whole new life, you know, with me, and it's doing all these other things. So it's like it's this whole new sort of different chapter that's just, you know, super cool, just like the chapter before that and the chapter before that kind of. You know?
It's like life has changed, you know, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's just a different thing, you know.
I got another, you said Kenny Chesney just made me think of this, you know, he did The Boys of Fall, right?
Yeah.
This could be like a sports thing, man, that could be really cool, you know? I mean, the Packers and the Bears, right? This is the longest NFL rivalry in the NFL. It's like over 100 years old. And as much as the Packers have sucked and the Bears have been good in the Super Bowl days, and as much as the Packers have been really good and the Bears have sucked, the average point difference between those teams over the course of the 100 years is 1.5 on the game. So it doesn't matter if we won 13 Super Bowls in a row and the Bears have been the bottom of the doormat of the NFL for 13 seasons in a row. Like when we play the Bears, the dice are tumbling. You never know. And there's SEC rivalries like that, you know. So that could be an interesting thing too. It's like
best hate is old hate.
Right? So like we have history, right? Like the best is history. Like it's so those are, you know, you could say those are the best games because those, you're nervous about them. You know, you don't know which way it's going to go.
Well, that's interesting because I don't know how you turn this into a song, but like I'm a Razorback fan, so when Missouri came into the conference, they're like, okay, that's Arkansas's new rival. That's your rival game. We're like, who? Like, we don't hate them. It's not a rivalry. Like, you can't just go, okay, now you got a trophy you've played for and you hate each other now. We're like, no, not really. Because it's, you know.
It does exist with the Bears and the Packers, I can tell you.
Well, Steve, it's the opposite of that. Yes, it's an old hate.
We're trying to create that in the media, right?
Not manufactured hate. But that could be the same thing for positive. I don't know. That's an interesting take. You'd have to dig into that to see, like, how does that apply to something like in a song?
One other angle, too.
Which is interesting.
It could be like a girl talking to a guy who's maybe still like hung up on his ex. Like she just feels like she can't compete with this past who like, you know, like you have it in your head that, you know, the best is history. Like I can't compete with that kind of thing. Is another angle.
Yeah. It's kind of like there's no future for us if the best is history. Like, and not even talking about our past, but his. Yeah.
Oh, that's when there's the line right there. There's no future for us if the best is history.
Yeah.
You know, getting somebody out of the. What about never mind. I lost it. Yesterday I was. No, wait, that wasn't me.
The best is history. Yeah, that, I mean, it is as a title. If it were thrown out in the room, I'd be like, "What's your angle on that?" I don't have one yet. what else you got?
Yeah,
So, because it is, I think the challenge of this one is like for commercial music to bring it in a way that is such an easily digestible sentiment. Like, oh, it's about
Yeah.
this. I can say it in one line, and you can see how it's all laid out, and it makes perfect sense. Which may just take more woodshedding and workshopping to get it there. But that's one of those titles like, oh, that's interesting, but it seems like it's going to be a kind of maybe a convoluted road to get there, possibly, which is a little scary. I like those easy ones when you're like, I can't believe that hasn't been written. Like that's
Yeah.
the gold one of like, oh my gosh, that's so simple and it looks good on a t-shirt
Yeah.
or a bumper sticker. And not that
yeah,
this is a bad
No,
title. It's just it's got to do a little
got a
more
lot
work.
of like potential. I think if you're gonna write a title like that, you almost have to do the extra work of writing the line before it too, so that when you present it to co-writers, you're
Yes.
presenting the whole story, and you say it's called, you know, Best is History, but it's actually Who Says the Best is History. It's about a guy talking to a girl saying da 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 da. Then I think you could have most people be like, I could get behind that. It's like it's has a
Yeah.
redeeming
yeah,
quality. Like to me, you either have to go so sad that it's just like a heartbreaker, or it has to have some redemption. Something that's kind of like matter of fact sad
Yeah.
for me doesn't. I don't know how to write that very well, so it either.
Mhm.
or I don't know if this is kind of saying the same thing, but it using a suffix instead of a prefix. But what like the best is history, but there's
Uh-huh.
more to come. What if it's
Mhm.
kind of like a hopeful song, about America, right? Like they're trying real hard to create a lot of division in this country and accentuate a lot of division, but at the same time, I feel, when it comes to civil rights and stuff like that, and just equal opportunity, that this country's probably, if it's not number one, it's in the top three.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
it's like
where it looks dark, and there's been moments of darkness in our history, and here's, don't forget this, don't
I
forget,
still
mhm.
even
women got the right to vote. Don't forget, it could be political like that,
Yeah.
but in a
even in
hopeful,
that
cool way.
scenario though, I think I still prefer the who says language, because there's something very conversational and casual
Yeah.
about that. It like doesn't become like super grandiose or anything. It's just kind of like who says the best is history. It kind of does
Yeah.
that without,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
makes it more digestible, I think, and like, oh, okay, you're just
Right.
saying the best is yet to come, or
Right.
it's still a possibility. It's not a foregone conclusion that our best days
Right.
are behind us. Um,
Yeah.
and because you could point to, and it's interesting because you could, in a way, like I'm thinking of like kind of politically, but it could also be a relationship thing. Like you look back at like positive things
Yeah.
that happened. Like yes, these are things. So kind of whatever your lane, whatever you want to focus on, as an artist, going, hey, these are great things from the past, but who says that that's our best days? Because look at what's going on now, or look at what could be, what's still ahead of us. And so in a way, you're all looking at all
Uh-huh.
positive things, or there may be like, yeah, there's some darkness now. You wonder, I guess you got to have some of that contrast, but then ultimately you're focusing on all positive things.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Unless you, I guess you could focus on, well, this has gone wrong, and this has gone wrong, and this has gone wrong. But who says our best is history? Which I'd rather focus on, like, what was the best about the past? What's the best about now? What's
Yeah.
the best about the future? Whether it's a relationship song or a political song or a kumbaya kind of thing, just because who wants to focus on
No,
the negative for
nobody.
3 minutes,
Nobody.
you know, 85 times in a week? Because hopefully
Well,
that's
because
how
we're
many times you're
already
going to listen
thinking
to it.
about that stuff, the negative stuff anyway. So we don't need a song to point that.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
need a, yeah, I agree. I
Beats.
don't need
Yeah.
a
Oh,
song
thanks.
to remind me of that.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
Twitter.
Really. I have life.
Yeah.
I don't need a song to remind
I
me of
have
that.
the
I have
world around me.
Twitter.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yes. Have
I have
everything
everything
else.
else.
Let's give some
Uh-huh.
hope. Yeah. Let's give some hope and some optimism. I think that's
The ticket.
it could be, yeah, I think that's the good use of this is like, okay, how can we give some optimism, give some hope? Because then, I mean, that's what people need more so than, just sadness. And
I have one
what was me.
more way. This
So
is
Yeah.
like a kind of a kitsch way to do this, but there are some artists that really like dig this kind of stuff. If you split it, if it wasn't like
yeah.
history, but if it was his story, and it's like I want to be the best of his story, you know. But you just,
hmm
I don't know,
Oh,
whatever. Your
I
oyster,
love
guys.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No,
that's
I
a
thought about that
lover.
too because
That's
that was
one
I
you.
just
I would
remember.
not throw that out in every room. I would have to know the artist because that is a love or hate. Some people hate doing that kind of stuff, and some people love, love, love it. So that really
Mhm.
depends. Whoever's listening to this, don't judge me based on that. That's going to be either or, you know.
That is, and that would I'd want to be like the best in history or the
Yeah,
best in his story of
yeah,
you know, um, and then that opens up a whole nother way of like she was the best in his story, or I want to be the
yeah,
best in his story, or I'm gonna
yeah.
be, or whatever. So you could still flip that tons of different ways.
Oh my God, that's like a whole new
The way
Pandora's
the
box
way I
of
would do
It
that
is.
ideas.
too, I wouldn't like title, I wouldn't write the title like history like the word. I would just then lean into like his story. I would separate them and then like let the ear do like I want to
Mhm.
be the best, like the best of his story. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And that's one of those go, okay, guys, listen, I'm gonna
Yeah.
throw this out there, but it's fine, right?
Yeah.
We haven't lost a man yet. Don't worry.
And have to say
It's okay.
it's one more way to do it. You got to split up some words, put some commas. It changes everything. You know, everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true. That's
that's
true.
or
That's true.
if you
Well, we
ask, or it's kind of a taking a dig at a guy who's very
Uh,
arrogant. You ask him, he's definitely the best in his
oh yeah.
story. You know, he's always right.
oh,
He's the best in history, or he's the best in his story anyway.
you just ask him,
In
he'll
his
tell you.
mind.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that could be fun. I mean, it's definitely, the kind of man bashing kind of
Yeah,
thing, so it depends on the artist and the lane, but it's pretty funny and a lot of
yeah,
truth to it for a
for
lot of
sure.
people too.
You could do that in a fun way, you know.
Yeah, it would have to be I think it would have to be fun just because
Yeah.
it's a wordplay kind of thing,
No,
not
no,
take
no.
itself too seriously because it is.
Yeah.
It's a
Uh-huh.
pun. It's wordplay, which,
And on that, and the way you could make that work would be very much um, sort of common blue collar tasks. Like he can fix the transmission,
Uh-huh.
mm,
in the bathtub, and he can he can patch a drywall better, and he's the best in his story.
To
yeah,
write that day,
or even at least he thinks
yeah,
it is. Yeah.
you need someone in the room that day that's really good at phrasing because, like, the way that you like would land that hook, phrasing and melody wise, is gonna be the thing that makes it cool or not cool. And for me, in
Yes.
my heart, I mean that
Yeah.
so strongly because
Yeah.
the way you land that, there is a cool way to do it. Like, I'm sure that if Hardy wrote that, it would be cool, no matter what he said. Like, just his
Yeah.
phrasing, in my opinion, like he's got some of the coolest phrasing. So he would land that in a way that's like
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a way to do it that is going to be corny as all get out. So,
Get out.
Yeah.
I
That's one
think
thing I
I think
appreciate you, Zarni. Last time we wrote, it was, we had this work on this idea and with a couple other folks, and she was like, okay, the normal way would be to go here on this anthem thing. Let's take it to a different place. And you pushed for a different place and ended up, I think, being better for it.
well,
So
we'll
she
see. I
knows
don't know
that
if
of
I
what she
always steer
speaks.
it there, but if that was the right call. But um, yeah, I don't know. I guess we're all
Well, I
just
like
trying
it.
to do trying to honor our tastes as much as we can sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
well,
Cool.
I think we got
Tony
some
Brown
people
said a
saying
thing. Tony Brown said a thing. I think it was one time like, "Hey, if at least if we think
Right.
it's cool,
Exactly.
somebody else is going to think it's cool. Like if we don't even think it's cool,
That's
maybe nobody
exactly no,
thinks it's
that's
cool.
exactly right, you know? That's raising your odds just ever so slightly, especially when it comes to writing for other people, because none of
Mhm.
us were the artist that day, so it's like, okay, there's 4 of us here. If we
Yeah.
4 like it, if even one of us in the room doesn't like it, we've already lowered our odds. All 4 of us need to think it's cool, then it
Yeah.
has the best shot. Then it's still kind of out of our control, but then we've at least done everything we can do.
Yeah. That's
You
right.
left the field. You left everything on the field
Yeah,
at that
Exactly.
point.
exactly.
I love it, Zarni. What can we? Where can our listeners connect
You know,
with
I
you?
think Instagram is honestly the best way. I have Spotify and a website, but I don't, you know, for a writer, I don't know that that's like as up to date with like what's getting released. Like Instagram is the way to do it because I'll sometimes post demos on my story and, you know, kind of see who I'm working with and stuff like that. That's the best way, I think.
Mhm.
Just
And what's your
Zarni
Instagram?
Music, Zarni Music.
Okay, at
Yeah.
Zarni Music. Great.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for saying yes. We got some good
Yeah.
looks at this. I think there's a
Come to
couple
Yeah.
different ways
Austin.
to write this. You know,
To Austin.
it's an interesting
Yeah.
exercise. But well, that takes us to the end of another killer song title challenge. Make sure you send your song titles into info@daredevilproduction.com, y'all, and maybe you'll get a hit songstress like Zarni to help flesh that out for you with Brent and I. This podcast exists because we want you to win, so keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.